Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Shed Organics Show. Now, my name is Jordan, and this week we have an incredible guest by the name of Emma Teni, and she is a spider keeper at the Australian Reptile Park. Now, this is just north of Sydney, and they are home to so many incredible spiders, snakes, and lizards, and other sorts of reptiles. And Emma does some really, really interesting work there with funnel web spiders. Interestingly, the deadliest spider that you can find on the planet. And she does some work with anti-venom, where one small drop, as she alludes to in this conversation, of this venom can take out many, many human beings. And it's very, very scary. But she's doing some incredible work highlighting that you can take some of this venom and turn it into anti-venom and save many lives with this. She also, on the flip side, is trying to raise awareness into how misunderstood some of these creatures can be and how fascinating spiders are. And we have this innate fear of things like spiders. And we talk about how that might be related to your genetics or some form of learnt fear that we've passed down through generations. So if this is something that interests you and you want to learn a little bit more about the world of spiders, then buckle up because we're about to jump into the conversation. This is Emma Teni from the Australian Reptile Park. I suppose the one of the more obvious places to start for this kind of conversation for someone like yourself is how do you not have the fear that so many people innately have for spiders?
I honestly, I've never really feared animals so much. We've got family videos and there's pictures of me going up to these giant kangaroos that I mean, they could trump me now in height. But
Wow.
I've never really been scared of the animals so much. But they say like with fear, it's either like it's genetic,
Mhm.
like a survival of the fittest, I guess Darwin theory type thing. So
Yeah.
the those ones that survived weren't the ones playing with snakes and spiders. And so it's taught not to play with snakes and spiders and things like that. But I just am not scared of them.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just not. I suppose just how some people are, scared of heights or falling or those kinds of things. I'm not scared of them. I respect them and I understand them.
Yeah. That's a
But I mean,
beautiful way.
yeah, and I mean, I've been obsessed with animals since I was born, and my mum used to always joke that she couldn't wash my clothes without checking my pockets because there'd be like a snail or a lizard or something in there. So when you've exhausted all supplies of pets that you can let your parents say you can get, you just go and catch them, right?
I love that. That's really cool. You're right, though. It's just this thing that either you have it or you don't. And I suppose going off that kind of exposure type situation where you say you're either taught to fear them or you're
Yep,
not. And generationally, like you might see your mum or whatever freak out when there's a spider in the living room, and then
100%.
all of a sudden they're the scariest things that you've ever seen, and then you're taught to fear them, and then you don't want to go near them, and et cetera, et cetera. So did you have no family that taught that sort of thing? Everyone was just kind of like, oh, it's a spider, just we pick it up, we put it outside or help him out or something like that. Is that kind of how you saw it, or were you a little bit of an outcast in that regard?
No, 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 not at all. So my dad is very catch and release. Like
Cool.
he had for ages a redback spider that lived on his laptop out in his office, and he'd just feed it. So like it's definitely, I know, my dad is very nature focused, and he does boat salvage. So he'll go down with a net and catch each individual little fish out of the boats and let them go before they lift them off to do the salvage. So
Goodness
he's
me.
yeah, he loves it. And so that definitely encouraged it. And then my mum was, well, is a preschool teacher. And so she's always really encouraged that like innate sense of self and who you are. And so I was just animals always, and that was always encouraged. And yeah, we've just always grown up respecting nature and animals. And never fearing it. And I guess, like you said, like you do learn it. And if your mum's screaming because there's a spider, you're going to scream. But when my daughter was little, everyone was like, "How do you have so many nice houseplants?" And I was like, "Oh, I just taught her we just kiss them. We don't rip them. We don't touch them. You just get taught a way of life, don't you?"
Hmm. That's so true. That's a really beautiful way of just saying like do you say we kiss them rather than we tear them up and things like this? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So with my ficus, my plant, my daughter, I would just say, "Oh, we just kiss them." So she
That's
wouldn't rip them.
gorgeous.
She'd just give them a little kiss.
Yeah, like a little pat. That's very beautiful. I like it. And so how, like you said, you went through sort of all the animals that you were allowed to have at home, and you got to spiders. How did you get to spiders as something you were like, yes, this is what I really want to focus on? Because for me personally, I'll speak probably for a large majority of people. I I really don't mind spiders in the garden. I like will, I'll be going around and if I move a pot or something and I see a spider, kind of gives me a little bit of a whoa, okay, and or it like runs up your arm and off and I'm okay, okay, that's all right. I can keep my distance, watch you. I'm not going to hurt you. You're doing your job. You're playing your role in the ecosystem. But I wouldn't go and pick one up and play with one or, become really fascinated. So how did that develop for you, that fascination?
So I didn't always start out with spiders. I actually was obsessed with the ocean, obsessed with seals, and obsessed with training marine mammals. So I
Cool.
actually did that at university, and I worked up at SeaWorld for a couple of years, working with the seals and doing the shows, and like
Wow.
dressing up as a police officer and driving boats with big seals on them.
Amazing.
And oh, the best. But then when I came back to the coast and I had my daughter and we started our family, there weren't any seals here. So when I was at the reptile park, I started just doing like reptiles and a little bit of mammals and that kind of stuff. And then the spiders fascinated me. And from more of a perspective of its life-saving work with anti-venom.
Mm.
And so I started milking the spiders and then I started breeding the spiders. And then just over the course of a couple of years, I've just become the spider lady. But I do think it comes from the fact that I do appreciate them. Whereas, some people will be like, oh, spider, whatever. But I mean, it's not a koala, it's not a kangaroo. Like I get my
Mhm.
fair share of them too. But I respect it as its own little individual being.
Mm.
And therefore, once you actually delve into the spider world, they are fascinating.
Yeah, super fascinating creatures. They really are. And I'd love to
Yeah.
dive into a little bit about some of that work and like you're talking about with the anti-venom and things in a second. But I want to highlight kind of what you do as part of your role at the reptile park. You're doing a lot of work with, I guess, little shows and workshops and things like this and helping people. Are you doing much of that where you're working with the public and handling some of these things and showing them and getting people to get up nice and close and personal with some of these spiders?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't necessarily encourage other people to handle the spiders,
Yes.
but we do have our encounters, which are amazing. And so you can come and see the milking program. We have Spider World, which is just incredible. We've got an exotic tarantulas on display here, and we do encourage people, yeah, to come in and see the spiders and appreciate them for what they are and what they do.
Totally. And I mean, I've seen you with tarantula crawling all over your face.
Yes,
And I mean, like, because you get to know the temperament of these creatures and
100%.
you can really understand, okay, we've built this relationship. I understand what it's looking for, whether it's going to be able to walk all over me, and I'm not going to show fear because obviously the fear that you give off will then translate to the animal. I've been learning this from other reptile people as well, especially with snakes and holding snakes, but they're not the most cuddly of creatures. So how are you have to kind of just let them do their thing on you, right? And crawl around. You don't kind of just like there's no cuddling like a koala might be. Is that right?
Yeah,
How do
no,
you
there
go about
isn't.
holding them?
Well, I mean, again, it's not something that we say, oh, everyone go out and hold a spider. When we got Gretchen, the big tarantula that you're speaking
Yes.
about, I didn't just go in and just pick her up and hold her.
Hmm.
Like I would sit there with my hand in her enclosure. I started by encouraging her to walk on a piece of bark. I would then hold her on the bark, and then I regressed with the bark. So heaps of people go, they don't have brains, you can't train them, blah blah blah. I'm not saying I trained it, and from a training perspective, I couldn't, encourage a behavior by giving her a cricket because a cricket a week. So I couldn't train her, but yeah, like you said, it's a matter of she knew I wasn't a threat and
Mhm.
I knew she wasn't a threat and I could see her behavior. So there would be some days I was like, oh, I won't touch her today. She doesn't want a bar of it. Whereas other days she was quite willing. She'd walk out onto my hand. You let her do what she wants to do, go for a wander. And then, yeah, she was quite content. And it is about learning their different personalities because I've got a couple of other Australian tarantulas here. Chi Chi is a lunatic. And then I've got Agatha, who, unfortunately for Agatha's name, is actually a boy. And he's super fast, but he's confident. Where Chi Chi's crazy.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, a crazy tarantula is not something that I'd probably want to pick up. Um, I'm kind of, yeah, moving in this way towards understanding the creatures and how to, like you say, not necessarily train them, but build this relationship so that you can handle them safely. So that when you're getting to the point of working with some of these spiders that are venomous and you are working with
Yeah.
things that are anti-venom, where it's crucial work for people that do get bitten. And I'm sure you might have some sort of statistics or knowledge on how frequent these types of bites and things are. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about your process of learning to work up to the venomous spiders and then how that work comes in terms of learning to milk them and your work with anti-venom.
Yeah, absolutely. So, funnily enough, the first spiders I ever worked with were the funnel web spiders. So, I
Wow.
started with the world's most deadly spider, and that started my interest in the spiders. And then I was like, cool, let's get a tarantula. So, it kind of worked backwards as far as like that venom severity goes. But as far as holding them, funnel web spiders, it is completely contact free. We do not touch them at all. And
Right.
I would never let
Okay.
them crawl on me. Yes, Gretchen did have venom, but she wasn't an aggressive spider and they're not a medically significant spider.
Hmm.
Whereas when we're talking about our funnel web spiders, our mouse spiders, even our redback spiders and things like that, I'm not going to just let them crawl on me, for the sake of getting a good media video or something like that. I have too much to live for. I value my life.
Yes. Yes.
But working with the funnel web spiders was a part of the job. And it is incredibly safe, granted you follow protocol.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So there's when you're not touching them, I've seen when people are milking snakes, for example, they have to get right in and they have to
Yeah,
hold it behind the head and kind of get it to bite on something. I've seen when the spiders they bring their big front legs up and they're
yeah.
in this sort of attack mode, which looks quite daunting. Are you sort of trying to talk me through the process of milking a spider? I'm not really sure how it works. Are you
Yeah,
getting them to bite into something?
no, so as you mentioned before, with the snakes, you have a shot glass effectively with a piece of plastic over the top, which they pull to the tension of a human skin. And they encourage the snake to bite down on it after they've pinned it, and they can
Hmm.
massage the venom glands, and that expresses the venom glands into the jar. And then they get quite a substantial amount of venom. With the spiders, our funnel webs are our old world spiders, so our ground dwelling spiders. Their fangs will point downwards, and that defensive position, which you said, that is them rearing up. And that's normally saying, don't come near me, I will bite you, or catching a prey item.
Hmm.
So what happens is either which way, they'll stand up, the venom drips off their fangs, and then they throw their fangs down into their prey item. So that venom is modified saliva, and that would start that digestion process outside of the body. So then they could eat that, or alternatively, it would immobilize, a predator, or deter a predator enough that the spider can get away.
Yes.
So when we milk the spider, where the snake milking is like you've got to be like a ninja and just so quick. With the spider milking, you have to be so precise and patient, and it's very repetitive, and it's very like very, very precise. Like these fangs, yeah, they can get up to like 2 centimeters, which ouch.
Yeah.
But when the spider stands up, the venom droplets come off, and these are tiny droplets. And so then we've got a glass pipette, and you actually suction the venom off the
Oh,
fangs.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they don't bite down into anything. I suck it into a pipette, and then once it builds up in the pipette, it actually crystallizes. And then we
Right.
transfer it to a vial by making it a liquid again using acetic acid, which is just
Mhm.
effectively a fancy vinegar.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. So you're right. It is very precise. You're gonna have to go in there and kind of be patient and
Oh yeah.
getting a few droplets. But can a few drops go a long way in terms of anti-venom?
A few drops go a long way in terms of killing you. So like your yield that you get, it's when you like mow the lawns and you sit back and you're like, oh my God, that just looks so good. That's so satisfying.
Yeah.
You do a whole day of milking and you're like, there's nothing there. It looks like there is nothing there. But in a vial with a tiny bit of venom, it could be enough to kill, everyone in the park that day. Like,
Whoa.
yeah, it is absolutely potent.
Yeah.
And it's but that being said, you need to milk about 150 to 200 spiders to even create one vial of anti-venom.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's huge work. Yeah.
And that one vial, is that for one person?
I like records. I think in 2017, a guy on the coast got bitten. He was 10, and I think he got like 13 vials.
Wow.
So it's huge.
So
And
there's a lot of spiders for what to save one person.
yeah, and the male spiders, they're effectively just genetic couriers. So once they mature, their job is to mate.
Yeah.
And so it's their venom that we use because it's 6 to 7 times more toxic than the females, but they've got a natural lifespan of 1 year.
Hmm.
So we have like a constant need for more and more spiders to be able to get enough antivenom.
That is honestly crazy. That really highlights how important it is for you to be doing this type of work
Yeah.
and like the consistency and how much you need to be getting because that's crazy, that amount of potency. Does it like if it gets on your skin or something or anything like that, how toxic is it compared to obviously if it went into your bloodstream?
So there's a difference between venom and poison. If something's poisonous, you ingest it and you get sick. So, like a berry or something like
Yeah.
that. Whereas with venom, it needs to be injected into your lymphatic system. So if I had an open cut or something on my hands that was bleeding and venom got into that, that
Yeah.
would be an envenomation. However, I would need an open wound. Theoretically, if I had venom on me, I could just wipe it off and there wouldn't be a problem. You should
Right.
theoretically be able to drink it, but if you've got an ulcer or an abrasion or something like that, it will go into your bloodstream and your lymphatic system, and then that would end poorly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. That's
Yeah,
incredible that the difference between actually going into your bloodstream depending on what it attacks. Like it's very deadly in one specific situation. But as you say,
yeah,
if you were okay to drink it, which I doubt anybody would,
yeah. We
then
don't recommend
yeah,
it.
then you're actually going to be somewhat okay.
Yeah.
Um, that's amazing, amazing. So how many of you are there that do this work at the reptile park or in general? How many people are doing work with anti-venom for spiders, especially things like funnel webs, redbacks? I presume redbacks are quite common bite as well in Australia and things. What are some of the other ones?
Yep. So redbacks, they get around 2,000 bites a year is the most common bite. However, they're only around 200 of those bites actually require anti-venom.
Yeah,
So most people can ice it and they're fine. The funnel web spiders, we're saving, 50 plus lives a year.
goodness me.
It's and bites are more frequent than that even.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of the fact that not all of them require that anti venom. But as far as who does what we do, the Reptile Park invented the anti venom for funnel web spiders in
Oh,
1981, and we are the sole supplier of raw venom for the anti venom program. So we are literally the only place that does this in the world.
whoa. Shouldn't
Yeah.
there be more? If this is a common thing, like, should we
Yeah.
be encouraging more people to do this?
Look, I don't know. Like, I mean, I know other people do work with the spiders and their venom to go down that path of like heart medications and things like that.
Mm,
But yeah, we supply the raw venom to the Commonwealth Serum Laboratory in
mhm.
Melbourne,
Yep.
and they create the antivenom, and we're the only people that do it.
Wow. So very, very important people, I imagine.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Tell us a little bit about some of the other species that you work with in spiders, and what are some of your favorites,
Okay.
and why?
So obviously you guys have heard about Gretchen. So she's
Yes.
our Australian tarantula and she is the favorite. And then we have on display in Spider World, we just have a lot of spiders which you would find in this area. So we've got your redbacks on display, your mouse spiders, which we are seeing so many of at the moment. It's their breeding season.
Wow.
They're a medically significant spider. If you were to be bitten by one of those, a serious envenomation, you would receive front web spider antivenom.
Okay.
And we also have wolf spiders. And up in our new Venom building, we've also got spiders on display up there as well. So we've got redbacks, funnel webs,
Cool.
golden orbs, and blue leg tarantula up there. And then we've got Tarantulaville, where we've got exotic tarantulas, which I think we're the only place in Australia that has exotic tarantulas on display.
That's so cool.
Mm,
I think it's worth a trip if anyone is close by, because you guys are just
100%.
outside Sydney, kind of, aren't you?
Yep. Yep. We're
Yes.
just north of Sydney and it is a fun day.
Yeah, yeah. I highly encourage people to go and do it because I'm all right walking through if I can see them all behind the glass. I can get up close and be like, oh, wow, this is really fascinating. But if it was outside the glass, I would be a good 50 meters away, like go
It's
watching from
it's
afar.
so funny when I milk the spiders in the spider room. It's a display so people can watch us milk, but people forget that it's like not a one-way glass. Like I can see their faces, and you just watch them like with the sheer face of like disgust and like terrified, and then you lock eyes with them, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize you
Yeah.
could see me. Like you're okay." But it's so funny because yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea at all.
Yeah, you must see all sorts of kinds of reactions from the
Yeah.
spiders. Why do you think I mean, we spoke a little bit about it before, but why do you think spiders and snakes and things like this get such a bad rap? I know that yes, maybe historically poisonous creatures we're trained to kind of genetically want to stay away from those types of things. But
Mm.
what is it about the spiders that really makes people kind of have these sheer these crazy reactions?
Honestly, I mean, no one likes anything that could kill them. And we do get a pretty good reputation in Australia as everything does want to kill you. Like if it's not going to envenomate you, it's big enough to take you down. But I just genuinely think like it's that like kind of ick factor. Like they are not the prettiest animal,
Mm.
and they move quickly. They yeah, they can bite. No one likes to be bitten by things. I've been bitten by a koala more than I've been bitten by a spider,
Well, there you
but
go.
no one thinks about that. Koalas get
Yeah.
away with everything. But yeah, I think people are innately scared, told to not go near them. Like when you're little, it's don't touch the spiders, don't touch the snakes, they will kill you.
Mm.
And so we're taught to not appreciate them and not respect them. And you know, like it's funny because I get a lot of like backlash for touching the spiders and talking about spiders. However, the same people giving the backlash probably have pest control come into
Yeah.
their house and literally obliterate them. So it's just I'm here, you know, to be like, hey, they're not so bad. They're pretty cool. They're actually very cool. And I'm all for the spiders and, you know, looking after them and catching them and releasing them. And then people go out and just be like, I don't want them in my house. I don't want them
Mm.
here and poison them and think nothing of it.
No, I think that's a terrible. What you're doing is amazing because even though, yes, sometimes you do have to jump in, handle them, and take venom from them, and maybe do some things that the spiders are a little bit out of their natural habitat or something like this. The general goal is raising awareness and doing it for the saving of these creatures and more
Yeah.
ecological awareness. So it's
Yeah.
certainly a good thing. Can you tell me about some of the roles in our ecosystems and nature in general that spiders play? For instance, I'm thinking in the garden, it's good to have spiders around because they can eat other pests and they can control different pests and things like this. Um, some of the beautiful webs that we see in the garden from something like a golden orb or things like that can take out some of our flying creatures that are going to come down and eat our
Yeah.
vegetables we're growing. But what are some other things that spiders are important for, and or things that you like to highlight about them in the ecosystem?
Well, I think the thing is, people only appreciate something once they understand it, and they only understand it once they're taught it or they actually ask the question. And so, with the crow or something on the side of the road, you can so easily see that it's cleaning up a carcass.
Hmm.
Like that's their, nature's garbage bin. Spiders are the same, but it's just those little things that you don't want in your house anyway. So, like, your mozzies or your cockroaches or things like that, they're actually doing that job anyway, and
Hmm.
they don't want to hurt you. They'll clean up. I think there's a statistic, and it probably gets thrown around a bit too much, but the spiders could eat the entire human population in 1 year, given the opportunity, with how much they clean up. Not giving
Wow.
them a bad rap, like it's not
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
arachnophobia, but they do such a significant amount of cleaning up
Hmm.
of all the little bits and bobs that you don't even think about.
So true, so true. And I'm going to use this opportunity to maybe bust a myth or two.
Okay.
Um, Now, the daddy longlegs spider that we see in our homes often, okay? Um,
Yep.
I did see you post a little bit of content about busting a myth on them about eating the human skin and whether it can penetrate and how toxic they are, etc. But I've also heard that, so maybe you can go into that, but I've also heard that they can take out some of the more poisonous spiders. So something like a redback or something
Yep.
like that. Can they come in and deal with those for you and keep those out of your house?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we have the daddy long legs that got that reputation of, it's the most venomous spider and it just can't penetrate human skin, they believe the origin of that story was because they eat the redbacks.
Mm.
So, if you take down the big dog, then obviously you're a bigger dog. But no, he just can do that. So that's where that reputation of these guys being so venomous was. And yes, they do. So if you've got them there, or your token huntsman, which yeah, they're terrifying, they move so fast, but he's cleaning up all the other guys. So
Yeah.
if it's there's a spot there for everyone.
That's so true. I think they're one of the ones that I don't mind seeing in the house, the daddy long legs. The huntsman, not so much. I can deal with that maybe out in the garden. But I've seen some pretty huge and fast huntsmen because we do get quite a fair few in Australia, don't we, with huntsmen and
Yeah.
quite sizable as well. Now,
Yeah.
they're not venomous, are they?
Well, they are venomous, but they're not medically significant. So a bite
Yeah.
from them, you would probably just ice if you had a reaction that you were concerned about. Obviously, I'm
Yeah.
a zookeeper. Go and seek medical attention. However, their venom isn't medically significant like you would consider your funnel web or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
but
good point to distinguish between the fact whether it's significant enough for you to urgently go and need attention because that I
yeah,
mean redbacks are one that comes to mind straight away and funnel webs where it's like okay, if I suspect that it might be that we need to get action quick
yeah,
smart.
100%. And the thing is as well, like people go, oh, what if it's not, no one's going to go, you idiot, why did you come to ER? Like you thought you got bitten by a funnel web. If you ignore it, on the other hand, no one's going to have the ability to tell you you're an idiot because you're not going to be there.
Yeah.
So if, when in doubt, go and get medical attention. It's Australia. Like you don't have to pay for it. In America, if you get bitten by a venomous animal, you have to pay for your anti-venom up front.
Whoa, really? I didn't know
Yep.
that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
not in Australia.
No, in Australia, it's all free.
That's amazing. That's
Yes.
well, I mean, that's kind of like one of the great things that the government can do for us in that regard is because we do have to face such incredibly venomous things at some
Yes.
points, and it's probably not through like a lack of care or anything, is it? Like people would generally get bitten when they're not expecting it. They're kind of just putting their hand into somewhere or they're just moving something and then all of a sudden they've gotten bitten. They're not usually going and playing with them and things like this, I imagine.
Look, statistically, if you're going to get bitten, you're either drunk and stupid or you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So there are instances where people are trying to catch a snake or show off, and
Mm.
that's just
Yeah.
that's Darwin's theory. Like like let the idiots wipe themselves out. However, if you're getting bitten, yeah, like especially in your case, you're gardening, you lift up a rock, that's where they are. They're hiding under their rock, and next minute there's giants there
Mm.
displacing their home. They're not coming after you like to try and have world domination, but they're going to defend themselves. They're little, like you can squish them.
Yeah.
Also, they do come into our homes, but they come into our homes for the exact same reasons why we have homes. It's warm, it's sheltered, they're safe, they're seeking shelter.
Yeah.
And especially with the rain that we've got at the moment, they live in burrows. So they're going
Yeah.
to come out of the burrows, they're flooded, they've got to go somewhere, they're going to go to higher ground, warmer ground, someone shoot.
That's so true. Yeah, such a great point. Speaking of that, then, how would we attract spiders to our garden? No, that sentence alone might scare people wanting to attract spiders, but as we've spoken about, they can be really useful. And I've mentioned to
Mhm.
quite a few people about having a pretty complete ecosystem at home for your garden as much as possible, because that's going to provide the best thriving diversity for
Yeah.
all of these things in your garden. So, tell me a little bit about habitat and going through a few of those things that you mentioned, like maybe they live in burrows. So can we put like a pile of sticks somewhere? Can we create some sort of areas or leave them go wild for spiders to live in? What are some things that we could do at home to encourage them to come in?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with what you're saying in the sense that you can't protect an ecosystem or and like just leave out a key species in it. So as far as creating habitats for the spiders, most people are asking the opposite question, like how do we not have them in our garden? For things like your funnel webs and your ground dwelling spiders and that kind of thing, they like to be under areas not disturbed and things like that. So
Mhm.
I mean, naturalistic, yes, you could have rocks and things like that around. They love rock walls and that kind of thing. And then for your other spiders, your New World spiders, your arboreal spiders, having those spaces where I guess low traffic areas, so
Yeah.
maybe not across your path, but if there's an area in your garden where you do have some nice branches and things like that, that can encourage them to have their webs there. And just like if you were going to encourage any invertebrate, or if you were trying to encourage frogs or something like that, you could put a little nightlight in, and that's going to encourage the
Mm.
bugs. And then the bugs are going to come for that, but they're also going to come. The spiders are going to come for the bugs.
That's a really good point. You know what? I've never thought of that, putting a nightlight in for bugs to come in so that there's something for them to go and eat. That's such a
Yeah,
smart idea.
yeah, and it's simple as well. The little ones that you can get from Bunnings that you could put along a path,
Yeah.
and they're solar. So if you pop them next to a pond, then the bugs are going to come there, and then the frogs are going to come there. Whereas if you're just attracting spiders, it's same, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is really, really cool. And I like what you're saying about the low traffic areas for the webs too, because
Yes.
you obviously don't want to be clearing these webs all the time.
No.
Often, if I have a spider that's created a web over a pathway or somewhere that I'm not keen to have it, I'll try my best and grab two like sticks and
And
sort of
yeah,
and I'll keep the web between it, and I'm trying to like stick it up somewhere else and put them so I don't disturb the web. But obviously, I'm not, doing the best job. Their webs are really, really fascinating, and
yeah,
something about the geometry as well that is just so gorgeous, that the way that they can do these beautiful patterns in there. And I don't know where that comes from, and I don't know whether you know that either, but it's really, really cool. Can you tell me anything else about the webs, how it becomes so sticky, and then the difference between some of these webs where we've got some that are really tough, like they're really hard to break. And then there's some that are just like kind of really wispy and you can kind of just brush through them. Is there a type of what's in the web that they are weaving, or is this tightly undiscovered science?
I haven't delved into it so much from like a what they're made of.
Mm.
But all spiders produce silk, but not all spiders produce webs. So I mentioned earlier you've got your ground dwelling spiders. They're like your funnel webs and your mouse spiders, those kind of spiders, they will live in burrows. And so they'll silk line their burrows and they'll have trip lines and things like that. And so the trip lines are that classic funnel which we see. And during breeding, the males will actually go and he'll drum on the webs. So, the
Whoa.
female knows if she's receptive to come out and they can mate. And she also knows it's not a bug to run out and eat him straight away. Whereas then you've got your New World spiders, and they're your arboreal ones. They're the ones that make those webs. And you've got your like orbs, so they're
Hmm.
those really stringy, sticky ones that you're thinking of. And just from like a layman's terms and kind of thinking off the cuff, those spiders are big and they are capable of eating like microbats and small birds and things like that.
Mm.
So I'm thinking the tension of the web and the stickiness and the strength is probably correlating with the ability to catch certain prey items, whereas your softer webs, your little ones, are just catching smaller things because they're only capable of eating those smaller things.
Yes.
So I definitely would say, if you're going to be catching a microbat, you're going to need a stronger web. It's kind of like that tension of your fishing rods. You know how you have to
Yeah,
choose
yeah, yeah.
choose your reel.
That definitely
Um,
makes a lot of sense. You're right, because it's
yeah.
like, I mean, if I walk through one like that, it's like, whoa, it pulls me back, you know? It's like,
Oh,
um,
yes.
yeah. So it pulls me right back, and I kind of get stuck on me and things like that. But the silk is fascinating too. So
Yeah.
I've seen spiders like eggs and things
Yeah.
that are wrapped. Is that wrapped in silk as well quite often? They've got these little sort of cocoons that they create with all the little babies.
Yep, they do. So our funnel webs in particular, we hatch their egg sacs around about November, December. And what happens is mum will lay down a little silk mat. She'll deposit her eggs and then she'll make another little silk mat over the top. So they look like a little marshmallow and they've got all the eggs in there. So she'll look after those eggs and turn them and make sure they're the right temperature and humidity and everything for the duration of that time. And then they'll actually hatch within there.
Wow.
They'll harden. They're like a little pink jelly bean, like tiny, tiny. They look like caviar.
Yeah.
And then as they'll molt once inside the egg sac, and then she'll help open the egg sac, and then they'll disperse. So yeah, they do. They wrap them in silk, and then you've got like your wolf spider who will wrap their eggs in silk and carry them around on her spinnerets. And then you've got your arboreals like your golden orbs and things like that. And that's when you see that golden silk because
Yeah.
they'll wrap them all up in their webs, and there's like a little parcel, and they're like kind of messy and wrapped up.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. How many eggs or spiders would one spider be giving birth to in a single go?
Well, I mean, look, with the funnel webs, we will get 70 to 150, but we have had cases where there was 220 in an egg sac and that kind of thing. So there's a lot. And then huntsmen's, it's just insane. They're hectic when they have their egg sacs, like hundreds. But the whole theory behind that is, from a genetic point of view and survivability, you've kind of got your R strategists and your K strategists. So one will have heaps and heaps of young in the hope that a couple survive with
Mm.
little parental care. Whereas then you've got other ones like humans, and they will have one young and invest a lot of care and a lot of time into it, ensuring that one young will survive. So with our spiders, they just have bulk babies and let them go out in the world and hope that a
Yeah.
couple survive to pass on their
Yeah.
genetics.
It's that Darwin theory again, isn't it? Survival of the fittest type
100%.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I presume then that also often correlates to the gestational period as well, like how long it takes for them to produce all of these young, because like with, as you say, with a human being, it's a huge investment. It's
Yeah.
9 months plus, but then you've also got, the best part of 18 years.
26 years now, let's be
Yeah.
real, we all live at home.
Exactly right. So how often are spiders laying eggs then and producing
um,
young?
So you've got different spiders, like your tarantulas and your funnel webs and things like that. The females can live for 20 plus years.
Whoa.
So their time, which with their egg sacs and that kind of thing, is significantly longer. Where then with your orbs and that kind of thing, it's almost like a yearly cyclical
Mm,
thing. So they'll towards the end of or I guess now-ish, they'll be having their egg sacs and everything. Mum will probably pass away, and that over winter the babies will hatch, and then that whole cycle starts again in spring where you start seeing them everywhere again.
yeah.
So it does depend massively on the type of spider, but one of the hard things working with spiders is their life expectancy is smaller, so you do have them pass away. And if I've got a red back on display now, chances are in 12 months I won't. And same with the male spiders that we milk, whereas with our tarantulas, I could still be working with them in 10, 15 years.
That's incredible. You're right. And you'd have to, the changeover of all of these species is quite quick, but then
Yep.
some, yeah, yeah, you get to know over a long period of time. That's really, really cool. Can you tell me a little bit about your day to day, possibly at the reptile park, and what that might look like? So what percentage are you doing milking versus doing like, your encounters and then that kind of thing? What's your normal day look like?
So my day is kind of cyclical with the spider cycle. So from November through to April is when we have our male spiders wandering, which is when we tend to get a lot of them in from the public. So in that point in time, 2 to 3 days a week, I will spend solidly milking the spiders. And then the rest of the time is raising the spiders. So our funnel web spiders mature at about 3 to 4 years of age. We breed them here and we actually actively go out egg sac collecting. So December through to June, July, we're feeding the babies every single week. And then for the next 3.5 years of their life, we feed them fortnightly until they mature into a male.
Wow.
So I've got the little room, which you can see on display when you do come down to the park where we milk, where, anytime we like to have, as many spiders as we can get, but, like 100 to 300 spiders being milked.
Goodness.
And then I've got the container out the back, which is a shipping container, which we've just had to double because I've got 5,000 spiderlings there that I'm raising. So, yeah, there's a lot
Whoa.
there. And other days we literally do go out egg sac collecting, which is so much fun. And we'll go out into the bush and gardens and everything, and we'll find the egg sacs, and then we will nurture them and hatch them. And unlike the wild, where one or two might survive, we might raise 1,200 new babies each year.
Yeah, brilliant. And then that's obviously more anti-venom and things like that.
That's exactly right.
What are
Yeah.
you looking for in terms of when you're going out for those funnel webs? Like what are you looking for out in the wild that gives you a clear sign that that's a funnel web spider? Is their burrows very distinctive, obviously, to you and that type of thing?
Yep. So, you can narrow it down pretty quickly. They live within about 120 to 160-kilometer radius of Sydney. So if we're in there, we're good.
Wow.
They like sloping areas. They like pretty untouched areas. So you're not likely to go into the middle of, a golf course that gets mowed weekly
Mm.
and find funnel web spiders. However, a property recently, we did some filming and we had to find spiders. And so I saw this property and went, yeah, that looks good. And it was just pretty well abandoned. And there were tiles piled up. They had dumped some tiles there. And I knew straight away that they'd be underneath those tiles. So if I'm looking for funnel webs, corrugated iron that's been left for a while laying down, rocks, tiles, just that kind of stuff, pretty undisturbed, or things like rock walls and logs and that kind of thing, you can find them under there.
Yeah, okay, cool. Because that's kind of like if you are wandering around in the bush and you're sort of seeing some of these areas, then you would be cautious about. I presume anybody would be cautious lifting up a piece of corrugated iron in Australia. You should be cautious
Yeah,
regardless of
yeah.
where you are. Um, but yeah, that's just good to know kind of what you're looking out for and how to check for those signs and things, especially because you say they are very localized to the Sydney area, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because that's why do they call them the Sydney funnel web? Or
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different species, like 40 also different species of funnel web spider, predominantly along the east coast of Australia. Some are arboreal, so they can live in trees, but the Sydney funnel web itself, which is Atrax robustus, they're the ones we milk here at the park because they are responsible for the most human fatalities prior to the invention of the anti-venom. So yeah, they are the Sydney funnel web. Recently, actually, they found they broke down the Sydney funnel web into 3 separate groups, but they're pretty localized to the Sydney area.
Okay, cool. Because I mean, that's something also to be aware of is what species are more localized to you and what you're more likely to come across if you're out there in the
Yeah.
wild. And um, you said a lot of the people bring them in. Is that something that the public do? They say, "Hey, look, we've found one. Can you come and take it away from our house or something like that?" How often does that happen?
Yeah, so a huge part of our program here, we actually encourage public donations. So from Newcastle all the way down to Sydney, we've got a bunch of different drop-off locations, which you can find on our website. And so if you happen to come across one of those spiders, like, I mean, you've got a couple of options. You can kill it and then no one wins. You can catch it and release it somewhere else, which is, preferable. And or alternatively, you can catch it, bring it into the park. You win because it's not in your backyard or your house or your shoe anymore. And then we can milk it here and create anti-venom. And if you're finding them in your backyard, then you never know, you or a loved one might need that anti-venom one day. So yeah, we do encourage people to catch the spiders. They're really safe to catch, granted you follow the instructions. And most importantly, just don't touch the spider. They'll walk into a jar. You can encourage it with a long-handled spoon, something like
Yeah.
that. Securely put the lid on, take it to a drop-off location or to here at the park, and then you've done your bit in
Yeah.
helping save lives.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool point because there's probably quite a few people that would find them and then instantly think to just get rid of it in
Yeah.
probably a not very nice way. What are some of the questions that you get asked the most about spiders, and what should we be asking more?
All right. What do I get asked most? Probably more along the lines of like being scared of them and that kind of thing. Yeah, people are always asking about, are they scary? Or, why am I scared of them? Have I been bitten? That's a frequently asked question. But yeah, it's probably more around the context of working with them that I get questioned, like,
Okay.
because everyone's so adverse to it.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. And just to get the answer to that question, have you ever been bitten?
No, I have not been bitten. Again, it's super duper safe. Granted that you keep your hands away from the bitey bits.
Yeah, 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 true. And what does it take to become someone who wants to work with these creatures? Because if you are one of those amazing people that does not get scared of spiders and is really fascinated and finds this work really intriguing, what are some ways that they can get involved with this? I know your pathway took you down a slightly unconventional way through working in the ocean world, but how would
Yeah.
someone dive into reptiles and spiders and things like that if they're interested in that?
I look, with anything in the zoo world, volunteering is massive. So if you've got a local, animal shelter or anything like that, volunteer with them. Reptiles, they're good in the sense that you can have your own collections at home. So you can start perfecting your skills and your experience and everything with these animals at home. Read, study, observe nature, get out involved in it, and yeah, make yourself be known without being annoying to
Yeah.
like the local zoos and facilities and things like that. Because when I was little, like I wasn't old enough to work, but I used to write letters to all the pet shops and all these things saying, "Can I please work there?" And you never hear back.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do. You get in contact. Not when you're like 7 asking for a
Yeah.
job, but when I volunteered from when I was 12, and as far as reptiles and spiders and everything like that, it actually is becoming a pretty well accepted hobby. And so, yeah, just self educate, get involved. There's herpetology in like groups and societies, and same with the spiders. And yeah, just if you want to do something, do it. Like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
amount of people who, when I said, I did marine biology, they're like, oh, I wanted to do that when I was younger. And I'm like,
That,
well, why didn't
yeah,
you?
why didn't
Like,
you? Exactly
well,
right.
yeah, like you go to university, you get your degree, you do your job. It's like, teachers and nurses, like, you get trained in the field and then you get a job in it. So,
Mm,
and my parents were definitely the kind of people who'd be like, okay, well, like whatever you want to do, we'll encourage it
that's
and
beautiful.
work bloody hard because I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, good on you. And I think that's a testament to what you're doing and to how hard you have worked in that endeavor. Um, I'll tell you a little story. I met this young fella called Josiah at a garden fair this weekend, and he had a little reptile show that he was doing at this event, and he had a couple of snakes there, and he told me that from a very young age, very similar to what you're highlighting here, is that you can get involved doing it at home. Now, he got
Yeah.
himself a little Stinton python or
Yeah,
Stimson.
Stinson Spicer. Yep.
Yes, that's the one. And so he got himself one of those. And I vaguely remember him saying something along the lines of needing a license of some sort to be able to either hold them or keep them as pets, and then to be able to then educate. Right? I'm not sure what point the license came in, but it
Yep.
was really interesting, like you say, that you are able to then go and have these creatures as pets. And what's your take on someone wanting a spider as a pet? And what spiders would people or have people got as pets?
So it's a funny thing. As you mentioned before with the licensing, in New South Wales, you need to get your wildlife handler's license or your reptile license. It used to be, I think, amphibian and reptile keeper's license, and that there's got different classifications. So you could have your level one, which is those entry level animals, your blue tongues, your Simpsons pythons, things like that. And then you go up to the higher levels. And then that exhibiting license, that's when you can go out and take your collection out and show and educate and everything like that. With the spiders, in New South Wales, in some other areas, you do need permit for certain species. But as far as spiders and invertebrates, they don't have many like ethics and rules surrounding them. So because they're an invertebrate, you can go and catch one and keep it as a pet, and that's not illegal. Ethically,
Okay.
though, it's probably not the right thing to do. And that's when having them as pets comes into it. And that's where I just can't express enough to have reputable sources for your animals. So, mini beasts are amazing. They're up in Queensland and they will breed those animals. And, you're going to get an animal that is mite free, parasite free, healthy, not plucked from the wild, because then that contradicts what we were saying before about their roles in the ecosystem.
Mm,
And it's not right to go and you wouldn't go and catch an echidna or a kangaroo and just be like, that's fine, I'm going to keep it now as a pet. You get in a heap of trouble for it too. But with the spider, you can get away with it. So as far as keeping them as pets, I like number one, source ethically
hmm
captive bred animals. And as far as the species to have, it would come down to your individual interests. People do and can keep venomous spiders as pets. I wouldn't. Um, like I don't know. It's like everyone rehomes their guinea pig that bites. So why would you go and get a venomous spider? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I yeah, and that's some people. Some people do that, and that's no judgment. But you can get your jumping spiders and things like that, and they're fun and they're inquisitive and they're cute to watch. The peacock jumping spiders are exquisite but tiny, so they're really
Tiny.
hard to see. And then you can have your tarantulas, and you can know they're semi-social tarantulas, so you could have like a little colony of them, or your individual solitary spiders and that kind of thing. But yeah, as far as keeping inverts, it's granted they're not exotic. There's so many options, and it is something that is becoming more popular.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm glad you highlighted that because my first thought was similar to what you said about keeping a poisonous spider. You know, you don't want to come home and find an empty cage and not know where it is.
Yeah.
Um, but aside from that, trying to protect the ones that are in our ecosystem and not just go and pick one up and take it home. So if you are looking at keeping some sort of spider, um, yeah, look for one that's a reputable brand or reputable source,
Yeah.
I should say. And you can go and find these guys that, and presumably they've got lots of knowledge they can help you with and set you
Yeah.
up with. And then also probably a good port of call if anything does happen or goes wrong or someone you want to find some more information about looking after these guys as well. Um,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Well, I think like the thing is with reptiles, they require, heating and lighting and all of these things. You don't just, you have a cat and you chuck it in your house and it lives in your house and your house is fine for it. Whereas with reptiles, you create this micro habitat. You're not just having a animal, you run its environment.
Yeah.
And if you have the wrong conditions, it's not going to thrive and potentially not survive. The spiders are so sensitive. And
Yeah.
things like the fact that, we've got lungs, they don't have lungs, they've got book lungs, so they need moisture in the air to be able to breathe. So if your enclosure is dry, your spider's not going to survive. To be able to move, they don't actually like use muscles like we do to move. It's like a hydraulic pressure, so they need to be hydrated to be able to move around. So
Goodness.
your conditions for your spider need to suit your spider, or your spider will pass on.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's such an important point.
Mm.
Look, can you just tell me, just to kind of wrap up, what's some of the favorite parts about your job that you absolutely love to do, and what's on the horizon for you and the reptile park, or either or, in terms of like looking into the future? What's things that are prevalent for you at the moment?
All right. What do I love about my job? I think as a mum, first and foremost, like it is amazing to think that we save people's lives.
Hmm.
So anyone's, child or, mum or brother or sister or, friend that is bitten by a funnel web spider since 1981 has not died because of us and what we do at
Yeah,
the park.
so
Like
good.
that is so cool to know that my bizarre little job in my bizarre little room that everyone goes, ugh, actually saves lives, and we're the only people that do it. That
Mm.
is huge. And to know that if, yeah, my daughter, was bitten, she would survive
Yeah.
is everything. I like the fact that, it's kind of got a bit of a stereotype, and I don't think I fit that per se. As far as the spider keeper is concerned, when people ask what you do for a job, they don't expect me to say I work with the world's most venomous spider.
Yes.
So that's fun. That shocks people, and it is really interesting. They're
Yeah.
they're super fascinating, and I feel like I know nothing
Right.
because I'm not new to it, but I'm pretty new to it. Like I said, I did marine biology. I work as SEALs. I studied training and everything like that. And the spiders, I just feel like I'm like tip of the iceberg. Like there's so
Mm.
much that I can and will learn. So any question, where am I going and with the park? I would just like to just continue to like do better. You know how like when you look at olden day zoos and things like that, the enclosures were nothing because people didn't give the animals enough credit to understand that like that theory of their being and everything like that. So I just want to see the whole industry like enclosures, everything just get better for the
Yeah.
animals.
Mm.
And that's really fun. And then as far as the park's concerned and spiders here, yeah, we really want to nail this funnel web spider breeding. So then we don't have to get the spiders from the wild because, that's got to have an effect on the wild populations of the spiders, although I'm sure everyone's pretty happy to see a rapid decline in funnel web spider numbers. But yeah, I want to nail breeding because it is so hard.
Yeah, I imagine. I imagine. But look, Emma, I think this is a really cool opportunity to highlight what you do and to kind of like, I guess, I'm grateful for the fact that there's people out there doing what you do, putting, yourself on the line working with venomous creatures. I know you say it is safe when you do it properly, but like essentially you're working with the most venomous spiders, as you say. So that's amazing that we've got these people doing these special jobs that can help that. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you help and save some lives and kind of raise some awareness about some of these creatures and why we shouldn't be so scared, but also to appreciate that, yes, they can be harmful to us if we don't treat them the right way, and how we can then go about looking after ourselves if that does happen. So yeah, I'm really grateful to you to spend the time to share some of this, share some of your passion and this kind of thing. Is there a place we can find you if people want to go and follow you and keep up with your journey? I presume, like I found you on Instagram, and I know the Reptile Park has Instagram and socials as well. Where are some places that you'd like to direct people to come and find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, our Reptile Park website is a good place to start if we're wanting to, find out about spiders, first aid, anti-venom, everything like that. Their socials, Australian Reptile Park. I think that's just it for
Yeah.
Instagram. And then I do have my page now, which is Emma Teni _spiders, where I can share all my weird, quirky things that I get to do. Yeah.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. What a crazy conversation. I know myself, I find it a little bit uncomfortable talking about spiders and dealing with spiders in general. But people like Emma are doing incredible work to help save so many lives when it comes to lethal spider bites. And even just to understand the fascination of how these creatures are and how they work, and to try and conserve some of our thoughts and feelings towards these guys and try and protect them out in our wildlife areas because they do so much for our ecosystems, and they are an integral part, just like so many of the other amazing wildlife we see out there. So something to be highlighted, something to be spoken about, and I'm really grateful to Emma and her team at the Reptile Park for giving us the time for her to come and speak to us and share her knowledge today. So once again, go and check out her links, both to her personal page and the Reptile Park as well. They will be in the links in the description and the show notes. And please, if you found value in the podcast, remember it is so valuable to me and to everybody else who can find this podcast if you leave a review. 5 stars is always preferable, but obviously anything that you can add that's valuable feedback can help me to better this show every single time and try and make it more accessible to more people. Now, again, last thing is the Intermediate Organic Growers Guide. Don't forget, I've got a beginner's one that is out for free. You can go and get that if you want to get started growing organically, thinking about living soil and keeping our healthy soil for healthy plants and healthy human beings. Go and check that out. It's on the website. Link is in the description. You can also now get the upgraded intermediate version, which goes a little bit more in depth and allows you to really harness some of those organic growing techniques for the betterment of your garden. So that's it from me. Thank you again very much for listening and very excited. I'll see you again on the next one. Bye for now.